And after this new deadly shooting by ICE agents in Minnesota and a clear and growing backlash to what people are seeing on the videos coming out, there's also new data suggesting that support for the agency is falling even further. CNN's Harry Enton's running the numbers on this. Harry, how much has changed in terms of ICE then versus now?
Yeah, I'm not really surprised that President Trump is sending Tom Homan in, because ICE, DHS, Kristi Noem have been a political disaster. Because just take a look here. I mean, ICE's net approval rating during Trump's term, you go back to term number one, look, it's pretty even at 0 points. You go to June 2025, right? That was when all that stuff was going on in Los Angeles. They dropped down, look at this, minus 17 points, way in the basement. But then after Minneapolis, it's even lower, minus 27 points on the net approval rating of ICE. Of course, this all being done under Kristi Noem. So, no, what's going on in Minneapolis is not popular at all. What's been going on during this second term under ICE, under the Trump administration, under Kristi Noem, has very much not been popular, and it's only been getting more and more unpopular.
The numbers just came in, and they are absolutely devastating for the Trump administration. ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, has gone from a net approval rating of 0 points during Trump's first term to minus 27 points right now. That's not a typo. Minus 27. That's a catastrophic collapse in public support, and it's happening in real time as videos of ICE raids, confrontations, and now a deadly shooting in Minnesota flood social media and dominate the news cycle. The American people are watching what ICE is doing under the leadership of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and they are rejecting it overwhelmingly. And here's what should terrify the Trump White House. This isn't just bad polling. This is a political crisis that's getting worse by the day. After the deadly shooting by ICE agents in Minnesota, an incident that sparked massive backlash and raised serious questions about use of force and accountability, Trump is reportedly sending in Tom Homan, his former acting ICE director and the architect of family separation, to try to clean up the mess. But you don't send in your most hardline immigration enforcer because things are going well. You send him in because the situation is spiraling out of control and you're desperate to regain control of the narrative before it destroys you politically. This is a full-scale meltdown. The videos are damning, the polling is collapsing, and the Trump administration's immigration crackdown, the signature policy of his second term, is becoming a political disaster that threatens to undermine everything they're trying to accomplish. Let me break down exactly what these numbers mean, because they tell a story of an administration that has completely lost the public on one of its core policy initiatives. CNN's Harry Enton just released new polling data on ICE's approval ratings, and the trajectory is shocking. During Trump's first term, ICE had a net approval rating of 0 points. That means equal numbers of Americans approved and disapproved of the agency. Not great, but not disastrous. Basically neutral public opinion. Fast forward to June 2025, just a few months into Trump's second term. ICE's net approval had already dropped to minus 7 points. That decline coincided with highly publicized raids in Los Angeles that showed ICE agents conducting sweeps in immigrant communities, detaining people without warrants, and creating scenes of chaos and fear. The videos from those raids went viral. People saw families separated, children crying, community members terrified, and public opinion started to turn sharply against ICE. But here's where it gets even worse. After the recent incidents in Minneapolis, including a deadly shooting by ICE agents that's now under investigation, ICE's net approval rating has plummeted to minus 27 points. That's a 27-point collapse from where Trump started his first term. It's a 20-point drop just since June. This is freefall territory. And it's not just ICE. The entire Department of Homeland Security, which oversees ICE and is currently run by Kristi Noem, is seeing its approval ratings crater. When asked whether DHS is doing an excellent or good job, Americans are saying no in record numbers. The broader Trump immigration enforcement apparatus, the deportation machine, the mass raids, the aggressive tactics, is wildly unpopular and getting more unpopular by the week. Harry Enton said it plainly. What's happening under Kristi Noem's leadership at DHS has been a political disaster. The Minnesota shooting isn't popular. The Los Angeles raids weren't popular. The entire approach to immigration enforcement in Trump's second term is turning the American public against the agencies carrying it out. Here's where this gets serious. And I need everyone to understand why this polling collapse matters so much. Immigration enforcement is supposed to be Trump's strength. It's the issue he built his political brand on. It's what energizes his base. It's the policy area where he's supposed to be unassailable politically. Build the wall. Deport them all. Mass deportations. Aggressive enforcement. These are the core promises of Trumpism. This is what his supporters elected him to do. But if the public is turning against ICE and DHS, if Americans are watching videos of immigration raids and deadly shootings and deciding that this is too much, that this is cruel, that this is out of control, then Trump's signature issue becomes a liability instead of an asset. And that's exactly what's happening. The polling shows that Americans are rejecting the Trump administration's approach to immigration enforcement. They're not rejecting the idea of border security or immigration law. They're rejecting the tactics, the brutality, the lack of accountability, and the human cost of how ICE is operating under Kristi Noem's leadership. And this is the part no one can ignore. Video evidence is driving this shift in public opinion. In the age of smartphones and social media, every ICE raid is recorded. Every confrontation is filmed. Every controversial incident is uploaded and shared millions of times. Americans aren't relying on government press releases or official statements. They're watching the raw footage themselves and drawing their own conclusions. The Los Angeles raids showed ICE agents operating aggressively in residential neighborhoods, stopping people without clear legal authority and creating fear in entire communities. The videos were everywhere. People saw what looked like military-style operations in American cities, and many of them recoiled. Then came Minneapolis, reports of a deadly shooting involving ICE agents. Details are still emerging, but the incident has reignited the debate about use of force, accountability, and whether ICE agents are properly trained and supervised. And once again, the backlash has been swift and severe. Trump's response tells you everything you need to know about how bad this situation has become. He's reportedly bringing in Tom Homan, the most controversial, most hardline immigration enforcer in his orbit, to take control. Homan was the architect of the family separation policy during Trump's first term. He's defended aggressive enforcement tactics. He's exactly the kind of person you bring in when you want to double down on hardline immigration policy. But here's the problem. Doubling down on the policy that's collapsing in the polls isn't a solution. It's a desperate attempt to reassert control when the political ground is shifting beneath your feet. Let's look at the specific numbers because they paint a picture of an administration in deep political trouble on one of its defining issues. ICE net approval rating during Trump's first term, 0 points. That's the baseline. Public opinion was split evenly. ICE net approval rating in June 2025, after the Los Angeles raids, -7 points. That's a 7-point drop in just the first few months of Trump's second term. Public opinion was already turning negative. ICE net approval rating after the Minneapolis incidents, -27 points. That's an additional 20-point drop in a matter of weeks. This is a catastrophic collapse. More than a quarter of the American public has moved from neutral or positive on ICE to actively disapproving of the agency. To put this in perspective, a -27 net approval rating means that significantly more Americans disapprove of ICE than approve. This isn't a marginal shift. This is a fundamental rejection of how the agency is operating. The Department of Homeland Security's approval ratings show the same pattern. When asked whether DHS is doing an excellent or good job, the numbers are underwater. The agency overseeing immigration enforcement, border security, and now these controversial ICE operations is failing in the eyes of the American public. And the trend line is what matters most here. This isn't stable unpopularity. This is accelerating unpopularity. The numbers are getting worse, not better. Each new incident, each new video, each new controversy drives public opinion further away from Trump's immigration agenda. Harry Enton's analysis makes clear that what's happening under Kristi Noem's leadership at DHS has been uniquely unpopular. The comparison to Trump's first term is stark. Even when Trump was implementing controversial immigration policies before, ICE's approval was neutral. Now, under Noem, it's in the basement and falling. This suggests that it's not just the policies themselves that Americans object to. It's how they're being implemented, the tactics, the public visibility of enforcement actions, the high-profile incidents like the Minneapolis shooting, the perception that ICE is operating without adequate oversight or accountability. All of this is contributing to the polling collapse. This exposes a much bigger problem for the Trump administration, because the factors driving ICE's unpopularity aren't going away. They're intensifying. First, the Trump administration has committed to mass deportations as a core policy goal. That means more ICE operations, more raids, more arrests, more confrontations. Every single one of these operations is a potential flashpoint for public backlash. Every raid that's filmed and shared on social media is another opportunity for Americans to see ICE tactics they find disturbing or excessive. Second, Kristi Noem has proven to be a political liability at DHS. She was appointed largely because of her loyalty to Trump and her high profile as a conservative governor, not because of any expertise in immigration enforcement or homeland security. Under her leadership, DHS has lurched from crisis to crisis. The optics have been terrible. The messaging has been confused, the oversight appears inadequate, and now the polling shows that the American people have lost confidence in the department she's running. Third, the Minneapolis shooting has created a new accountability crisis. When ICE agents use deadly force, there are supposed to be investigations, reviews, and transparency about what happened and why. But the Trump administration has shown little interest in holding ICE agents accountable or reforming enforcement practices. Instead, they're defending the agents, attacking critics, and trying to change the subject. That stonewalling approach might work with the base, but it's alienating everyone else. And here's what makes this so dangerous politically. Trump can't simply abandon his immigration enforcement agenda without alienating his core supporters. His base expects aggressive deportations. They want to see ICE cracking down. They elected Trump to be tough on immigration, so Trump is trapped. He can't moderate his approach without losing his base. But continuing the current approach is driving away everyone else. The walls are closing in on Trump's immigration strategy, and there's no clear way out. Bringing in Tom Homan signals that Trump intends to double down, to go harder, to defend ICE more aggressively, to push back against critics. But that approach risks making the political situation even worse if it leads to more controversial incidents, more viral videos, and more public backlash. Let me be clear about what these polling numbers actually mean for Trump's presidency and his political future. First, Trump is losing the immigration debate. Not with his base, they're still with him, but with the broader American public, independent voters, moderate Republicans, even some conservatives who support border security in principle are looking at ICE operations under Noem and Trump and saying this has gone too far. Second, this creates a massive vulnerability heading into the 2026 midterm elections. Democrats will use these videos, these incidents, and these polling numbers to argue that Trump's immigration policies are cruel, chaotic, and out of control. They'll run ads featuring footage from ICE raids. They'll highlight the Minneapolis shooting. They'll point to the collapsed approval ratings and argue that Americans have rejected Trump's approach. Third, this undermines Trump's ability to govern effectively on other issues. When your signature policy initiative is collapsing in the polls and becoming a political disaster, it consumes oxygen. It dominates media coverage. It forces you into defensive mode. Trump should be able to focus on his economic agenda, foreign policy, or other priorities. Instead, he's dealing with a self-inflicted crisis in immigration enforcement. Fourth, this creates pressure within the Republican Party. There are Republican elected officials who represent diverse districts, who have significant immigrant populations in their constituencies, who are already nervous about being associated with the most aggressive aspects of Trump's immigration agenda. As ICE's approval ratings crater, those Republicans will face pressure to distance themselves from Trump's policies or risk losing their own elections. And fifth, this damages America's international reputation. When videos of ICE raids and shootings go viral globally, when America's immigration enforcement apparatus is seen as brutal and unaccountable, it undermines America's moral authority on human rights and rule of law. Other countries watch this and question American leadership. The timeline is tightening, and Trump's choices are all bad. Option 1, double down. Bring in Tom Homan, defend ICE, attack critics, and continue aggressive enforcement. This is clearly Trump's preferred approach. It's what he's doing right now. But the risk is that continued enforcement operations lead to more controversial incidents, more viral videos, and even worse polling. At some point, The political damage becomes unsustainable. Option 2, moderate the approach. Scale back high-profile raids. Improve training and oversight for ICE agents. Increase accountability for use of force. This might stabilize the polling and reduce political backlash, but it would enrage Trump's base, who expect uncompromising enforcement. Trump has shown no willingness to moderate on immigration. It would be seen as weakness. Option 3, replace Kristi Noem. If DHS's approval ratings are in the basement and Noem is seen as a liability, Trump could replace her with someone more competent or less controversial. But replacing a cabinet secretary is a major political move that suggests failure, and Trump hates admitting mistakes. Plus, it's not clear that a different secretary would fundamentally change the dynamics if Trump is still demanding aggressive enforcement. Option 4, change the narrative. Try to refocus public attention on border security, cartel violence, crimes committed by undocumented immigrants, anything to shift the conversation away from ICE's tactics and toward justifications for enforcement. This is what bringing in Homan is partly about. He's a messenger who can go on TV and defend ICE aggressively. But changing the narrative is hard when new videos keep emerging and public opinion keeps shifting against you. The most likely scenario is that Trump doubles down, the enforcement operations continue, more controversial incidents occur, and the polling gets even worse. Trump will attack the media for covering ICE critically. He'll call the polling fake news. He'll rally his base by framing this as elites attacking working Americans' security. But none of that will change the fundamental political reality. Americans are watching ICE operate under Trump and Noem, and they don't like what they see. Here's what makes this situation so critical beyond the immediate political implications. Immigration enforcement in a democracy requires public consent. The agencies that enforce immigration law need to operate with legitimacy, with accountability, with public trust that they're following the law and using force appropriately. When ICE's approval rating collapses to minus 27 points, that's a sign that the agency has lost public legitimacy. An immigration enforcement agency that operates without public support, that faces widespread disapproval, that's seen as brutal or unaccountable, becomes a threat to democratic norms. If Americans believe ICE is out of control, if they see the agency as operating above the law or without adequate oversight, that erodes trust in government institutions more broadly. The videos coming out of Los Angeles, Minneapolis, and other cities aren't just political problems for Trump. They're windows into how power is being exercised in America. When Americans see ICE agents conducting raids that look like military operations, when they see confrontations that escalate to violence, when they see families terrorized and communities living in fear, they're seeing the face of state power in their country, and they're rejecting it. The polling collapse is Americans saying, "This is not who we are. This is not how we should treat people. This is not the country we want to live in." Trump's response, to bring in Tom Homan, to defend ICE, to attack critics, suggests he's not hearing that message. He's interpreting the political backlash as media bias or elite opposition, not as a genuine shift in public opinion. That's a dangerous miscalculation that could have severe political consequences. ICE's approval rating has crashed from 0 to minus 27 points. That's not spin. That's not partisan interpretation. That's data showing that the Trump administration's immigration enforcement strategy is failing politically. The videos from Los Angeles showed ICE operating aggressively in American communities. The Minneapolis shooting raised questions about use of force and accountability. And the American people are watching all of it and saying, this has gone too far. Trump is sending in Tom Homan to try to regain control of the situation, but that's not a solution. It's a sign of desperation. You don't bring in your most controversial hardliner because things are going well. You bring him in because you're in crisis mode and you're hoping aggressive messaging can turn things around. But messaging won't fix this. The problem isn't how ICE operations are being described, it's how they're actually being conducted. And as long as Trump demands aggressive enforcement, as long as Kristi Noem oversees a department that's losing public confidence, as long as controversial incidents keep happening and being filmed, the political damage will continue. The The numbers don't lie. ICE is collapsing in public approval. DHS is failing politically. And Trump's signature issue, immigration enforcement, is becoming his biggest political liability. This story isn't over. More ICE operations will be conducted. More videos will emerge. More polling will be released. And the political consequences for Trump will continue to mount. Stay informed. Pay attention to what's happening with ICE and DHS. Watch the videos. Look at the data. Because what we're witnessing is a fundamental rejection of how the Trump administration is conducting immigration enforcement, and that rejection is accelerating.